It was early dawn as I made my way up north on Florida's Turnpike. My destination? Green Cove Springs, to meet up with some friends of mine and do an all-day railfan adventure across northern Florida and southern Georgia. Some pretty unfamiliar territory for me. I soon crossed over the S-Line in Wildwood, Florida. No good signals here, though, so I pushed on north. About 20 to 30 minutes later, I passed through the city of Ocala on I-75, where I'd start hearing something on my scanner, but pretty unclear, so I had no clue train symbol or direction or any of that. I would soon figure out who it was, and resulted in a pretty interesting chase that I unfortunately can't show because I lost that footage.
CSX Equipment Defect Detector milepost 715.8. No defects. No defects. Total axle 612. End of transmission.
There it goes. 612 axle, that's a pretty big train. So I'm going to definitely try to beat him up to Hawthorne, because I'm about to cross over the S line right now, and I just looked down at Island Grove and there are crossings. I couldn't tell if the train was going through there yet, but I could try to beat him to Waglusa or Hawthorne. I'm going to try to beat him to one of those two. I arrived at Hawthorne before the mysterious northbound train, who I soon learned was M442, a train I don't usually catch with him running at ungodly early hours. There'd also be something else here at Hawthorne, but we'll wait for that. after M442, I'd wait a little while longer for M457, who was sitting in the Hawthorne siding waiting for him to pass. I thought that I'd see him here since 457 usually goes down the S line around this time in the morning. Trailing on 457 was Spirit of Dante, CSXT 391. And while it doesn't hold anything to the, big Spirit units like 911 or 3194, it was still a pleasant surprise, and coupled with the AC-44 leading and that great hybrid K5LA, made for a nice catch. I decided to hit the road after M457 pretty quickly since I still had about an hour's worth of driving ahead of me and I was already running late. But eventually in Green Cove, I'd meet up with my friends Drew, Alan, and Miranda, and we'd hit the road northward. Our first train of the day was M456, sitting in Solite Siding just north of Green Cove Springs. He was waiting here for Amtrak PO53, the southbound auto train. It was definitely cool to see him stopped here, and I definitely got a lot of cool photos. In a few minutes, PO53 would show up, with two AOC 42s and a P40 DC, making for a pretty interesting meet with M456. After PO53, M456 would get their signal out of the Solite siding and continue their way north. We didn't stay for the entirety of him though, since we tried to chase him, but that didn't go pretty well, so enjoyed the little bit we did see at 456. This is where we'd break off from M456 and continue our way northwards. On the way up north, we'd stop at X4 Yard, just north of downtown Jacksonville, where an active SD50-3 was sitting. But we weren't here for long, and we'd keep heading north. Our final destination, Waycross, Georgia. Soon we'd cross the St. Mary's River into Georgia, and after passing through downtown Folkston, we'd be in Waycross about 30 minutes later, where a train was waiting for us at the Waycross depot. With the tripod barely set up and leveled, we'd catch M492 here at the Waycross depot, near the virtual Railfanning camera. M492 is manifest traffic out of Waycross's Rice Yard, a few feet near us, up to Florence, South Carolina. I think this train used to run up to Hamlet, North Carolina, but as of looking at the CSX train symbols log, it says Florence, so that's what I'll put. And of course, we did chase him, so we'll see that shortly. After my friend Alan gave us a signal to get back in the truck because, it's time to chase him, we'd quickly hop in and head northeast to chase M492. I'd get a little shot of him heading out of downtown Waycross, and eventually, we set up near a pretty complex crossing where I'd get another shot of M492. Again, not the full train, but oh well. Arriving at the crossing on South City Boulevard, where for some reason M492 was stopped, he'd eventually continue going. We don't know why he stopped, but it was nice to get some good photos of him, and it was cool to catch him going pretty slow here, so yeah, enjoy another pass of M492. After watching M492 crawl in front of us for a bit, we'd make our way around Waycross as we wanted to look around and see what was happening. On our way back towards downtown Waycross to check out the storage line at Rice Yard, we saw an L725 stopped on the Jessup sub. We didn't know why he was stopped exactly until a few minutes after. On the head end of L725 would be some Bayline chip hoppers, which was definitely cool to see, and CSXT 810, which apparently has a really nice K5 HLA. Haven't heard it yet, and this was the only time I saw 725, so that was pretty cool. I got you.
PMRX. So they're no longer actually owned by Metal.
Ahead of L725 was a long cut of intermodal blocking the Jessup sub closer to downtown Waycross. We figured this was from an I-197 or I-198, but we would never actually see it, so that was another mystery here in Waycross.
Yeah, they just have this giant train that's just sitting on the main. Jack, where you at? Doesn't have it.
He's eating.
Jay's just sitting right there. Just instant.
Eventually, we'd make it to one of the most popular places to visit in Waycross, the deadline at CSX's Rice Yard. This was definitely a bucket list stop for me for a very long time, and while we didn't see the AC6000s, because of course they moved them, we still saw a ton of great locomotives regardless, and it was definitely just cool seeing all this motive power sitting here that they just don't use anymore.
Somebody in cars right there by these. Ooh, wait, what's that one? 87, 67. Which one's that one?
I think it's another SD60. We'd view the locomotives from the truck, and then hop out and get our photos. After that, we decided to make our way down south, and chase M603 to Folkston, since he was leaving Waycross around the same time we did. The first stop we made on our chase of M603 was here in Race Pond, at the train inspection portal, in between Waycross and Folkston. This is definitely a bucket list catch for me, since I've always wanted to catch a train here, and even though the weather was pretty gloomy, it still made for a really nice catch. after catching his lead engine at Race Pond, we hit the road back south to Folkston, because we had a feeling he'd get there around the same time as us. Little did we know, another train would pop up at Folkston while we were there, which would result in a pretty cool train meet. And we'd finally see what M603 had mid-train, which is definitely the biggest surprise of the whole day. Here's the surprise that we were waiting to see on M603. Unfortunately, I was the only one who saw it because I crossed the tracks to be over here, but mid-train on M603 was a BNSF H2 AC44 CW. Was definitely really cool to see, especially with this frame-perfect train meet. Following right behind M603 would be CSX I-141, southbound intermodal from North Baltimore, Ohio to Jacksonville. I crossed back over to the side near the Railfan camera, which was a pretty nice catch with the water tower in the background. After I-141, we headed down south to catch an M208 coming out of Baldwin, bound for Louisville, Kentucky. We were going to try to go to Callahan to turnout, but we didn't have enough time as he was rocketing up the A-line, so we stopped at Boulogne, right at the defect detector, and caught M208 here. With funnily enough, the same locomotives that was on M456 earlier, but with the CM44 leading. This is honestly a pretty great way to end such a really nice day of rail fanning, and I hope to return up here soon, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, enjoy M208 here at Boulogne.
CSX Equipment Defect Detector. Milepost 610.6. Track 1. No defects. No defects. Total axle 172. End of transmission.
That's a good reading for the M208-11 C6D 7382. Got a clear signal. Boulogne, track number 1, north out.